The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with the familiar sound of dozens of alien species conducting their daily business. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the massive crystalline structure that orbited the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Today's agenda held particular interest for many delegates. The debut of humanity's first interstellar fleet, Ambassador Zethkar of the Velthari Empire leaned back in his floating chair, his 6 eyes gleaming with amusement as he reviewed the technical specifications displayed on his personal screen. The humans called it their prototype fleet, 12 vessels that looked more like flying scrap metal than proper starships. Their designs violated every principle of elegant spacefaring technology that had been refined over millennia. "Look at these primitive constructs," Zethkar whispered to his aide, pointing at the holographic displays. "Angular, brutish things covered in what appears to be armor plating. Who builds ships expecting to take damage?" Nearby, the crystalline representative of the Axiom Collective chimed in harmonious tones that translated as laughter. "Their propulsion systems are laughably inefficient. Chemical rockets for maneuvering, fusion drives that burn so hot they require massive cooling systems. We abandoned such crude technology 10,000 years ago." The human delegation sat quietly in their assigned section, seemingly unbothered by the whispered comments and barely concealed mockery surrounding them. Admiral Sarah Chen, Earth's first interstellar fleet commander, maintained her composure as alien after alien questioned humanity's readiness to join the galactic community. Her weathered face showed no emotion, though her jaw tightened slightly each time another species compared human engineering to children's toys. Captain Marcus Rodriguez, sitting beside the admiral, watched the display screen showing humanity's ships with pride despite the ridicule. The UES Defiance, flagship of their small fleet, might not be as sleek as the Velthari cruisers or as graceful as the Etherian cloud ships, but every rivet and plate had been forged with human determination and ingenuity. "Honored delegates," announced the session's moderator, a tall, spindly being known as a coordinator, "we shall now witness the demonstration of humanity's naval capabilities." The main viewing screen shifted to show the testing grounds, an empty region of space dotted with asteroids and debris fields. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in a formation that immediately drew snickers from the assembled aliens. Unlike the flowing organic arrangements favored by most species, the human ships moved in rigid geometric patterns that spoke of military discipline rather than artistic grace. "They fly like they're expecting a battle," observed the Centauri representative, her forearms gesturing dismissively. "Such paranoid thinking. Who fights in space anymore?" Civilized species settle disputes through economic pressure and political maneuvering. The demonstration began with basic maneuvers. The human ships performed adequately, though their movements lacked the fluid grace that marked advanced spacefaring cultures. They were functional, nothing more. When the weapons testing commenced, however, a different kind of murmur rippled through the chamber. The first target, a defunct space station provided by the Council, disappeared in a brief flash of superheated plasma. The second target, a reinforced asteroid selected for its size and composition, cracked apart under sustained railgun bombardment. Each successive demonstration showed weapons that were crude, but devastatingly effective. "Kinetic weapons," scoffed the hegemony observer. "How delightfully primitive. They're actually accelerating pieces of metal and hurling them at targets. It's like watching our ancestors fight with rocks and sticks." Admiral Chen finally stood, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "Honored delegates, we appreciate this opportunity to demonstrate our capabilities. We understand that our technology may seem unrefined by your standards. We are, after all, newcomers to the galactic stage." The Admiral's diplomatic tone masked the steel beneath her words. "However, I would like to note that these primitive weapons and crude ships represent humanity's first serious attempt at interstellar military engineering. They were designed with one principle in mind: they work when called upon." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a chuckle among his species. "Admiral Chen, please don't misunderstand our observations. We welcome humanity to the galactic community. These learning experiences are natural for emerging species. In time, you'll develop more sophisticated approaches to space travel and defense." "Defense?" Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. "Ambassador, if I may ask, when was the last time your empire faced a serious military threat?" The question caught Zethkar off guard. He paused, consulting his aide before responding. The Velthari have enjoyed peace for over 3 centuries. We participate in the Galactic Security Compact, of course, but actual military action has been unnecessary. 3 centuries, Admiral Chen repeated, letting the number hang in the air. Forgive my directness, Ambassador, but in humanity's brief history, we have rarely enjoyed even 3 decades of uninterrupted peace. Our ships are built by a species that has never stopped fighting. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates exchanged uncomfortable glances. The concept of continuous warfare was alien to most galactic civilizations, which had long ago evolved beyond such primitive behaviors. Captain Rodriguez activated his personal display, showing a star chart that highlighted humanity's home system. Sol system, he announced. 3rd planet Earth, gravity 1.2 times galactic standard, atmospheric pressure that would crush most of your surface installations, weather systems that regularly produce winds capable of destroying cities, tectonic activity that reshapes continents, and that's just the planet. He expanded the display to show the entire system. Asteroid fields that constantly threaten navigation. A star that bathes everything in radiation levels that require shielding on most worlds. Gas giants with gravity wells that could trap unwary ships. We call it home. The Axiom Collective's representative chimed a question that translated as curiosity mixed with disbelief. Your species evolved in such conditions. Not just evolved, Admiral Chen replied. Thrived. Humanity has spent its entire existence adapting to hostile environments and overcoming impossible odds. Our ships reflect that heritage. They may not be beautiful, but they're built to survive. As if summoned by her words, an urgent alert echoed through the chamber. The coordinator's translation unit crackled with electronic distress as multiple emergency signals flooded the galactic communication network. The main screen shifted to show reports streaming in from the Outer Rim territories. Unknown vessels attacking mining operations in the Kepler sector, the coordinator announced, his voice rising with each new report. Frontier colonies requesting immediate assistance. Transport ships missing along major trade routes. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates realized that their long peace was about to end. In the midst of the confusion, Admiral Chen's voice cut through the noise like a blade. It appears, honored delegates, that you're about to discover why humans build ships expecting to take damage. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of the first distress signals. Representatives who had been casually mocking human engineering now sat in stunned silence as reports flooded in from across the galaxy's outer territories. The attacks were systematic, brutal, and unlike anything the galactic community had experienced in centuries. Director Malthus of Galactic Intelligence stood before the assembled delegates, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled urgency. The Andromedian's blue-gray skin had taken on a sickly pale hue as he delivered his briefing. The attackers emerged from dark space approximately 18 hours ago, Malthus began, his voice echoing through the crystalline chamber. Initial contact occurred at mining station Epsilon 7 in the Kepler sector. The facility's automated systems managed to transmit 43 seconds of combat footage before going dark. The main display screen flickered to life, showing grainy images of massive black shapes moving against the stars. The vessels were enormous, easily dwarfing the largest ships in the galactic fleet. Their surfaces seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, making them difficult to track visually. When they fired, beams of sickly green energy lanced out with devastating precision. We estimate each ship to be between 8 and 12 kilometers in length, Malthus continued. Their weapons appear to be some form of exotic energy projection, possibly dark matter manipulation or quantum disruption fields. Our physicists are still analyzing the data. Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward, his 6 eyes fixed on the display. How many ships are we dealing with? What are their demands? Current estimates suggest a fleet of at least 200 vessels, possibly more. As for demands, Malthus paused, his expression growing darker. They haven't made any. Every attempt at communication has been ignored. They destroy everything they encounter. Stations, ships, even automated probes. There are no survivors. The chamber erupted in alarmed chatter. The concept of warfare without political objectives was as alien to most species as the attackers themselves. Wars were fought for resources, territory, or ideological differences. This seemed to be pure annihilation. What of our defense forces? Asked the Centauri representative, her forearms gesturing frantically. Surely the Galactic Security Compact has protocols for such situations. General Thys of the Etherian Cloud Fleet, the Compact's military commander, rose with obvious reluctance. His ethereal form shimmered as he accessed his personal data files. The security compact maintains a defensive force of approximately 400 vessels, distributed across 12 sectors. However, our ships are designed primarily for peacekeeping operations and disaster relief. Admiral Chen, who had remained silent throughout the briefing, finally spoke. General, with respect, what does that mean in practical terms? Thys's form flickered with what might have been embarrassment. It means, Admiral, that our vessels prioritize speed, efficiency, and humanitarian capabilities over combat effectiveness. The last major military engagement in this galaxy occurred over 3 centuries ago. Our current fleet consists mainly of fast cruisers equipped for rescue operations and diplomatic missions. And weapons? Captain Rodriguez asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Defensive systems only. Energy shields, electronic countermeasures. Some low-yield plasma cannons for clearing space debris. Nothing designed for ship-to-ship combat against an enemy of this magnitude. The silence that followed this admission was deafening. Centuries of peace had left the galactic community utterly unprepared for genuine warfare. Their ships were floating cities, their crews trained for exploration and diplomacy, their weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. Admiral Chen stood slowly, her weathered face grave. Director Malthus, do we have any intelligence on the attackers' origin? Their technology suggests they're not from this galaxy. Our xenoarchaeologists believe they may be extragalactic in origin, Malthus confirmed. Preliminary analysis of their energy signatures shows no match with any known technology in our databases. They appear to be using principles of physics that we've never encountered. Extragalactic, whispered the Axiom Collective's representative, the harmonic tones of its voice carrying a note of pure terror. They've traveled between galaxies to reach us. The energy requirements alone suggest technology far beyond our understanding. Zethkar's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed the implications. Then we're facing an enemy with superior technology, superior numbers, and no apparent interest in negotiation. What are our options? General Thys accessed another file, his form dimming as he delivered the crushing news. Based on current projections, our defensive forces would be overwhelmed within days if these attackers continue their current rate of expansion. Our best estimate gives us perhaps 2 weeks before they reach the core worlds. The chamber fell silent again, the weight of potential extinction settling over the assembled delegates. Civilizations that had existed for millennia, species that had contributed countless advances to galactic society, all faced annihilation by an enemy they couldn't understand or communicate with. It was Admiral Chen who broke the silence. The human fleet is ready for immediate deployment. The statement drew incredulous looks from across the chamber. Zethkar's 6 eyes focused on the human admiral with something approaching pity. Admiral, I appreciate your courage, but 12 ships against 200? Your vessels, while sturdy, would be destroyed within minutes. Perhaps, Admiral Chen replied calmly, but those 12 ships were built by a species that has never accepted inevitable defeat. We've faced impossible odds before. She activated her personal display, showing detailed schematics of human vessels. Our ships may lack the elegance of your designs, but they were built for one purpose: to fight and survive in hostile environments. Our crews are trained for combat, not peacekeeping. Our weapons are designed to destroy enemy vessels, not disable them for capture. Captain Rodriguez stood beside his admiral, his voice carrying the conviction of a veteran warrior. Honored delegates, humanity may be new to galactic politics, but we're not new to warfare. While your species enjoyed 3 centuries of peace, we were perfecting the art of war. Every human ship carries the lessons learned from 10,000 years of conflict. The display screen shifted to show the human fleet's capabilities in detail. Fusion reactors that could be overloaded for massive energy output. Armor plating designed to withstand kinetic impacts that would shatter most alien hulls. Weapon systems that fired solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. Our ships are flying fortresses, Admiral Chen continued. They're built to take damage and keep fighting. Our crews are trained to operate under battlefield conditions that would incapacitate most species. We may only have 12 ships, but each one represents the accumulated military knowledge of our entire civilization. Director Malthus studied the human specifications with growing interest. These kinetic weapons, they accelerate projectiles to what percentage of light speed? Approximately 15%, Captain Rodriguez replied. At that velocity, even a small mass carries the explosive force of a nuclear weapon. Our railguns can fire continuously for hours without degrading. The implications began to dawn on several delegates. While their weapons were designed for precise, efficient energy discharge, human weapons were crude hammers that converted mass and velocity into devastating force. In a universe where most species had forgotten how to fight, humanity had never stopped perfecting the art of destruction. There's something else, Admiral Chen added, her voice carrying a grim note. Our ships were designed with one tactical assumption, that we would always be outnumbered and outgunned. Every human vessel is equipped for extended independent operations behind enemy lines. The chamber stirred as delegates realized what she was implying. While their own ships required regular resupply and maintenance, human vessels were built to fight alone in hostile space for months at a time. General Theiss's ethereal form brightened slightly. You're suggesting guerrilla tactics? Hit-and-run attacks to disrupt their advance? I'm suggesting, Admiral Chen replied, that while your fleets prepare whatever defenses they can manage, the human fleet will do what humanity has always done when faced with superior numbers. We'll make them pay for every inch of space they take. The UES Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler sector, like a predator stalking its prey. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, her experienced eyes scanning the tactical displays that showed the aftermath of the aliens' latest attack. Where mining station Epsilon 7 had once processed asteroids into refined metals, only debris and radiation signatures remained. Sensors detect massive energy residue consistent with the attacker's weapons, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the science station. The station was vaporized approximately 6 hours ago. No life signs detected in the area. Captain Rodriguez moved to stand beside the Admiral, his weathered face grim as he studied the destruction. Around them, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, men and women who had trained their entire careers for this moment, even if they'd never expected to face an extragalactic enemy. Any sign of the attackers themselves? Chen asked. Negative, Admiral. However, I'm detecting trace particle signatures indicating they've moved deeper into the sector. Based on the dispersal patterns, I estimate they're targeting the Kepler-7 colony next. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Kepler-7 housed nearly 2 million Galactic Council citizens, scientists, miners, and their families who had never seen warfare. If the pattern held, they had perhaps 8 hours before the attackers arrived. Helm set course for Kepler-7. Maximum sustainable speed. Communications signal the fleet to maintain loose formation. We're going to get our first look at these bastards. The human fleet had spread throughout the sector in a carefully planned search pattern. Unlike the galactic norm of traveling in tight formation, human naval doctrine emphasized survivability through dispersion. Each ship operated independently while maintaining communications links that allowed for rapid coordination. The UES Wolverine was first to make contact. Admiral, this is Captain Torres aboard Wolverine, came the transmission from their position near Kepler-7's outer system. We've got visual contact with the enemy fleet. Jesus Christ, Admiral, these things are massive. The main display on Defiance's bridge lit up with the feed from Wolverine's sensors. The attacking fleet hung in space like a collection of dark cancers against the stars. Each vessel was enormous, organic-looking curves mixed with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They moved with purpose, their formation tightening as they approached the colony world. Count them, Captain Torres, Admiral Chen ordered. 23 vessels, Admiral. Smallest is roughly 8 kilometers long. Largest appears to be nearly 15. They're not responding to any communication attempts from the colony. On the display, energy began building along the attackers' hulls, that same sickly green glow that had been witnessed at every attack site. The colony's defensive platforms, designed primarily for asteroid deflection, powered up their pathetic energy shields in a futile gesture of defiance. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have visual confirmation of the enemy fleet. Execute Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was humanity's response to overwhelming enemy numbers. Divide the enemy's attention and make them pay for every target they chose to engage. The human fleet scattered like a pack of wolves, each ship taking a different vector of approach. The UES Defiance led the charge, her fusion drives burning at maximum output as she closed the distance. Behind her, 11 other human ships spread across multiple attack vectors. their crews preparing for the first interstellar battle in human history. Weapon status, Admiral Chen called out. All railgun batteries charged and ready, reported Commander Jackson from Tactical. Nuclear missiles armed and loaded. Point defense systems online. Admiral, we're as ready as we'll ever be. The attackers seemed to notice the approaching human fleet, several of their massive vessels turning to face the new threat. Energy readings spiked as alien weapons powered up, weapons that had already destroyed dozens of galactic installations. Admiral, came Captain Torres's voice over the comm. They're targeting Wolverine. Energy buildup consistent with their primary weapons. All ships weapons free. Target the lead vessel and fire at will. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously, 12 ships unleashing everything they had at the largest enemy vessel. Railgun projectiles streaked across space at 15% light speed, each one carrying the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. Nuclear missiles followed, their drives burning bright as they accelerated toward their target. The effect was immediate and shocking. The alien vessel's hull, which had absorbed energy weapons without apparent damage, buckled and cracked under the kinetic bombardment. Massive sections of the organic-looking armor plating shattered as relativistic projectiles punched through layers of exotic matter. Direct hits, Commander Jackson reported, his voice filled with amazement. Multiple hull breaches detected. That thing's bleeding atmosphere. The alien fleet's response was swift and devastating. Green energy beams lanced out from multiple ships, targeting the scattered human vessels. The UES Wolverine, closest to the enemy, took a direct hit to her port side. Wolverine's been hit, came the report from Captain Torres, his voice strained but steady. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7. We're venting atmosphere but maintaining combat capability. Damage control teams responding. What followed would be analyzed and studied for decades to come. While the galactic species had built their ships to avoid damage through speed and shields, humans had built theirs to absorb punishment and continue fighting. Wolverine's crew sealed the hull breaches with emergency bulkheads and continued firing, their railguns never stopping their deadly barrage. The UES Defiance engaged the enemy flagship directly, her weapon systems hammering the massive alien vessel with continuous fire. Each railgun projectile that struck sent shockwaves through the enemy ship's hull, while nuclear missiles detonated against the weakened armor plating. Admiral, we're getting energy feedback from their hull, Lieutenant Commander Kim reported from the science station. Whatever material they're using for armor, it's not designed to handle kinetic impacts at these velocities. The projectiles are disrupting their hull integrity on a molecular level. The battle raged for 40 minutes, an eternity in space combat. The human fleet danced around the alien vessels like angry hornets, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the worst of the enemy fire while concentrating their attacks on single targets. When it was over, 3 alien vessels hung dead in space, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. 2 more showed significant damage, trailing atmosphere and debris as they struggled to maintain formation. The remaining 18 ships had pulled back to a safer distance, apparently reassessing their tactics. The human fleet had paid a price for their victory. The UES Wolverine was heavily damaged but still operational. The UES Ranger had lost her main engines and was running on backup power. 3 other ships showed varying degrees of battle damage, but they were all still fighting. Damage report, Admiral Chen ordered. All ships reporting combat effective status, Commander Jackson replied. Wolverine needs time for repairs, but she can still fight. No casualties reported fleet-wide. Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of pride. Her crews had performed magnificently, proving that human engineering and training could compete with superior alien technology. But she knew this was just the beginning. Communications, signal Galactic Command. Inform them that human kinetic weapons are effective against enemy hulls. Also transmit all sensor data from the engagement. She paused, studying the alien fleet as they regrouped in the distance. They'd learned something today. These extragalactic invaders weren't invincible. Their technology was advanced, their ships were massive, but they could be hurt. They could be killed. Captain Rodriguez, she said quietly, prepare the fleet for hit-and-run tactics. We're going to follow these bastards and make them pay for every system they enter. The colony at Kepler 7 was saved, its 2 million inhabitants safe for now, but Admiral Chen knew the real war was just beginning. The aliens would adapt, would change their tactics. The question was whether humanity could stay ahead of them long enough for the galaxy to mount a real defense. In the depths of space, the remaining alien ships began moving again, heading deeper into galactic territory. Behind them, like shadows cast by a dying star, news of humanity's first victory against the extragalactic invaders spread through the Galactic Council chambers like wildfire. Species that had dismissed human engineering as primitive now pored over the battle data with intense fascination. The impossible had happened. The seemingly invincible enemy had been hurt, their ships damaged by weapons that most civilizations had abandoned millennia ago. Ambassador Zethkar found himself in an uncomfortable position as he stood before the emergency assembly. His previous mockery of human technology now seemed not just misguided, but dangerously naive. The six-eyed diplomat's mandibles clicked nervously as he addressed the packed chamber. Honored delegates, the tactical analysis of the Kepler sector engagement has been completed. The human fleet's kinetic weapons proved devastatingly effective against enemy hull material. Their projectiles, fired at 15% light speed, penetrated alien armor that had previously absorbed our most powerful energy weapons without apparent damage. The Axiom Collective's crystalline representative chimed a harmonious question. How is this possible? Our weapons generate exponentially more energy than these primitive kinetic projectiles. Dr. Venth, the Council's chief physicist, materialized as a hologram at the center of the chamber. The Andromedian scientist's blue-gray skin was flushed with excitement as she explained her findings. The key lies in the fundamental difference between energy and kinetic weapons, she began, her image rotating to face different sections of the assembly. Our directed energy weapons, while sophisticated, distribute their force across the impact area. The alien hull material appears to be designed to dissipate and absorb energy through some form of exotic matter. Matrix, the holographic display, showed a detailed analysis of the alien ship's hull structure. Layers of unknown materials arranged in complex, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow even under microscopic examination. However, Dr. Venth continued, kinetic weapons concentrate enormous force into a tiny impact point. At 15% light speed, even a small mass carries enough momentum to disrupt molecular bonds at the point of impact. The alien armor simply cannot redistribute kinetic force fast enough to prevent structural failure. The implications rippled through the chamber. General Thys of the Etherian Cloud Fleet leaned forward, his ethereal form brightening with interest. You're saying that our advanced energy weapons are actually less effective than hurling pieces of metal at high velocity? Not just pieces of metal, Dr. Venth corrected. The humans use depleted uranium cores wrapped in tungsten carbide jackets. At relativistic speeds, these projectiles carry the kinetic energy of small nuclear weapons. But more importantly, they deliver that energy in a focused point rather than dispersed across a target area. The chamber buzzed with urgent conversation as the full meaning became clear. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had spent centuries perfecting elegant energy weapons, while completely overlooking the brutal effectiveness of kinetic bombardment. Director Malthus of Galactic Intelligence rose to address the assembly. We've received additional reports from Admiral Chen's fleet. They've engaged the enemy 4 more times over the past 72 hours, consistently inflicting significant damage while suffering minimal casualties themselves. The main display screen showed a tactical map of human fleet movements. Red markers indicated enemy positions while blue showed human ships, always outnumbered, always moving, always striking where least expected. The humans have adopted what they call wolfpack tactics, Malthus continued. They divide their fleet into hunting groups of 2 or 3 ships, coordinate attacks on isolated enemy vessels, then disappear back into dark space before reinforcements can arrive. Ambassador Zethkar studied the display with growing admiration. They're not trying to hold territory or protect fixed positions. They're simply hunting the enemy wherever they find them. Exactly, and it's working. Our intelligence estimates suggest the aliens have lost approximately 15% of their force strength in the past week. More importantly, their advance toward the core worlds has slowed significantly. The Centauri representative raised all 4 arms in a gesture of confusion. But how do 12 ships successfully engage an enemy fleet of nearly 200? The mathematics alone suggest this should be impossible. Captain Rodriguez, who had been granted observer status at the emergency session, stood to address the chamber. His weathered face carried the marks of recent combat. a reminder that while politicians debated, human crews were fighting and dying in the dark between stars. Honored delegates, there's something you need to understand about human military doctrine. We don't fight fair. We've never fought fair. When facing superior numbers, we use every advantage we can find. Terrain, timing, misdirection, and above all the enemy's own assumptions against them. He activated his personal display, showing footage from the most recent engagement. 3 days ago, the UES Reaper and UES Stalker engaged a group of 5 enemy vessels near the Vega system. Instead of attacking directly, they waited until the aliens were conducting what appeared to be a scanning operation of the system's asteroid belt. The footage showed 2 human ships emerging from behind a massive asteroid, weapons blazing. The alien vessels focused on their scanning operation were caught completely off guard. 2 enemy ships were destroyed before they could return fire effectively. We used the enemy's size against them, Rodriguez continued. Those massive ships of theirs are powerful, but they're also slow and difficult to maneuver. Our vessels are smaller, faster, and designed for rapid tactical changes. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications. The humans weren't just winning through superior weapons. They were winning through superior tactical thinking. They fought like predators, not prey. General Thiss's ethereal form shimmered with what might have been embarrassment. Captain Rodriguez, I must ask, could our forces adopt these tactics? Could we convert our existing ships to use kinetic weapons? Rodriguez exchanged a glance with Admiral Chen, who nodded permission for him to continue. General, with respect, your ships weren't designed for this kind of warfare. Your hulls are built for speed and efficiency, not for absorbing battle damage. Your crews are trained for peacekeeping and exploration, not combat operations. The harsh truth settled over the chamber like a funeral shroud. Centuries of peace had left the galaxy's defenders utterly unprepared for real warfare. Their ships were floating cities. Their crews were diplomats and scientists. Their weapons were tools for law enforcement, rather than instruments of destruction. Dr. Venth's hologram flickered as she accessed new data. However, there may be a solution. Our shipyards could potentially construct vessels based on human designs. The technology isn't particularly advanced. It's simply different from our usual approaches. The Axiom Collective chimed with interest. You're proposing we abandon centuries of engineering advancement to build crude human ships? I'm proposing, Dr. Venth replied, that we build ships designed to fight and survive rather than ships designed to impress and explore. The humans have proven that sometimes crude effectiveness trumps elegant sophistication. Admiral Chen finally spoke, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had faced the enemy and survived. Honored delegates, I don't pretend to understand the politics of galactic civilization. But I do understand warfare. This enemy isn't interested in negotiation or surrender. They're here to exterminate every living thing they encounter. She stood, her weathered face grim with determination. You can spend months designing new ships and training new crews, but you don't have months. You have weeks, maybe days, before they reach the core worlds. The human fleet will continue hunting them, slowing their advance as much as possible, but we can't stop them alone. The chamber erupted in urgent discussion as species that had known only peace for centuries grappled with the reality of total war. Some delegates called for evacuation of the core worlds. Others demanded that every available ship be converted to military service, regardless of cost or practicality. Through it all, Admiral Chen remained standing, a solitary figure representing humanity's unwavering resolve. Her small fleet might be all that stood between the galaxy and extinction, but she would not yield. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and survived. They would do so again or die trying. In the depths of space, the hunt continued. Human ships stalked their massive prey through the darkness between stars, each engagement teaching valuable lessons about the enemy's capabilities and weaknesses. The galaxy's mockery had turned to desperate hope as they realized that Earth's primitive deathworlders might be their only salvation. The UES Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler sector, like a predator stalking its prey. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, her experienced eyes scanning the tactical displays that showed the aftermath of the aliens' latest attack. Where mining station Epsilon 7 had once processed asteroids into refined metals, only debris and radiation signatures remained. Sensors detect massive energy residue consistent with the attacker's weapons, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim from the science station. The station was vaporized approximately 6 hours ago. No life signs detected in the area. Captain Rodriguez moved to stand beside the Admiral, his weathered face grim as he studied the destruction. Around them, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, men and women who had trained their entire careers for this moment, even if they'd never expected to face an extragalactic enemy. Any sign of the attackers themselves? Chen asked. Negative, Admiral. However, I'm detecting trace particle signatures indicating they've moved deeper into the sector. Based on the dispersal patterns, I estimate they're targeting the Kepler-7 colony next. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Kepler-7 housed nearly 2 million Galactic Council citizens, scientists, miners, and their families who had never seen warfare. If the pattern held, they had perhaps 8 hours before the attackers arrived. Helm set course for Kepler-7. Maximum sustainable speed. Communications signal the fleet to maintain loose formation. We're going to get our first look at these bastards. The human fleet had spread throughout the sector in a carefully planned search pattern. Unlike the galactic norm of traveling in tight formation, human naval doctrine emphasized survivability through dispersion. Each ship operated independently while maintaining communications links that allowed for rapid coordination. The UES Wolverine was first to make contact. Admiral, this is Captain Torres aboard Wolverine, came the transmission from their position near Kepler-7's outer system. We've got visual contact with the enemy fleet. Jesus Christ, Admiral, these things are massive. The main display on Defiance's bridge lit up with the feed from Wolverine's sensors. The attacking fleet hung in space like a collection of dark cancers against the stars. Each vessel was enormous, organic-looking curves mixed with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They moved with purpose, their formation tightening as they approached the colony world. Count them, Captain Torres, Admiral Chen ordered. 23 vessels, Admiral. Smallest is roughly 8 kilometers long. Largest appears to be nearly 15. They're not responding to any communication attempts from the colony. On the display, energy began building along the attackers' hulls, that same sickly green glow that had been witnessed at every attack site. The colony's defensive platforms, designed primarily for asteroid deflection, powered up their pathetic energy shields in a futile gesture of defiance. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have visual confirmation of the enemy fleet. Execute Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was humanity's response to overwhelming enemy numbers. Divide the enemy's attention and make them pay for every target they chose to engage. The human fleet scattered like a pack of wolves, each ship taking a different vector of approach. The UES Defiance led the charge, her fusion drives burning at maximum output as she closed the distance. Behind her, 11 other human ships spread across multiple attack vectors, their crews preparing for the first interstellar battle in human history. Weapon status, Admiral Chen called out. All railgun batteries charged and ready, reported Commander Jackson from Tactical. Nuclear missiles armed and loaded. Point defense systems online. Admiral, we're as ready as we'll ever be. The attackers seemed to notice the approaching human fleet, several of their massive vessels turning to face the new threat. Energy readings spiked as alien weapons powered up, weapons that had already destroyed dozens of galactic installations. Admiral, came Captain Torres's voice over the comm. They're targeting Wolverine. Energy buildup consistent with their primary weapons. All ships weapons free. Target the lead vessel and fire at will. The human fleet opened fire simultaneously, 12 ships unleashing everything they had at the largest enemy vessel. Railgun projectiles streaked across space at 15% light speed, each one carrying the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. Nuclear missiles followed, their drives burning bright as they accelerated toward their target. The effect was immediate and shocking. The alien vessel's hull, which had absorbed energy weapons without apparent damage, buckled and cracked under the kinetic bombardment. Massive sections of the organic-looking armor plating shattered as relativistic projectiles punched through layers of exotic matter. Direct hits, Commander Jackson reported, his voice filled with amazement. Multiple hull breaches detected. That thing's bleeding atmosphere. The alien fleet's response was swift and devastating. Green energy beams lanced out from multiple ships, targeting the scattered human vessels. The UES Wolverine, closest to the enemy, took a direct hit to her port side. Wolverine's been hit, came the report from Captain Torres, his voice strained but steady. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7. We're venting atmosphere but maintaining combat capability. Damage control teams responding. What followed would be analyzed and studied for decades to come. While the galactic species had built their ships to avoid damage through speed and shields, humans had built theirs to absorb punishment and continue fighting. Wolverine's crew sealed the hull breaches with emergency bulkheads and continued firing, their railguns never stopping their deadly barrage. The UES Defiance engaged the enemy flagship directly, her weapon systems hammering the massive alien vessel with continuous fire. Each railgun projectile that struck sent shockwaves through the enemy ship's hull, while nuclear missiles detonated against the weakened armor plating. "Admiral, we're getting energy feedback from their hull," Lieutenant Commander Kim reported from the science station. "Whatever material they're using for armor, it's not designed to handle kinetic impacts at these velocities. The projectiles are disrupting their hull integrity on a molecular level." The battle raged for 40 minutes, an eternity in space combat. The human fleet danced around the alien vessels like angry hornets, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the worst of the enemy fire while concentrating their attacks on single targets. When it was over, 3 alien vessels hung dead in space, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. 2 more showed significant damage, trailing atmosphere and debris as they struggled to maintain formation. The remaining 18 ships had pulled back to a safer distance, apparently reassessing their tactics. The human fleet had paid a price for their victory. The UES Wolverine was heavily damaged but still operational. The UES Ranger had lost her main engines and was running on backup power. 3 other ships showed varying degrees of battle damage, but they were all still fighting. "Damage report," Admiral Chen ordered. "All ships reporting combat effective status," Commander Jackson replied. "Wolverine needs time for repairs, but she can still fight." "No casualties reported fleet-wide." Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of pride. Her crews had performed magnificently, proving that human engineering and training could compete with superior alien technology. But she knew this was just the beginning. "Communications," signaled Galactic Command. "Inform them that human kinetic weapons are effective against enemy hulls. Also transmit all sensor data from the engagement." She paused, studying the alien fleet as they regrouped in the distance. They'd learned something today. These extragalactic invaders weren't invincible. Their technology was advanced, their ships were massive, but they could be hurt. They could be killed. "Captain Rodriguez," she said quietly, "prepare the fleet for hit-and-run tactics. We're going to follow these bastards and make them pay for every system they enter." The colony at Kepler 7 was saved, its 2 million inhabitants safe for now, but Admiral Chen knew the real war was just beginning. The aliens would adapt, would change their tactics. The question was whether humanity could stay ahead of them long enough for the galaxy to mount a real defense. In the depths of space, the remaining alien ships began moving again, heading deeper into galactic territory, behind them like shadows cast by a dying star. The battle for the Proxima Cluster would go down in galactic history as the moment when civilized space held its breath and watched 12 human warships attempt the impossible. The enemy had finally abandoned their systematic advance and consolidated their remaining forces, nearly 160 massive vessels, into a single overwhelming fleet aimed directly at the galaxy's political heart. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, studying the tactical display that showed their desperate situation. The alien armada hung in space like a dark constellation, each vessel bristling with the weapons that had already carved a path of destruction across 40 star systems. "Admiral, long-range sensors confirm enemy fleet composition," Lieutenant Commander Kim reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of their task. 157 vessels, led by what appears to be a command ship nearly 20 kilometers in length. They're maintaining tight formation and heading directly for the Sol Relay Station. The Sol Relay was more than just a communication hub. It was the nexus that connected humanity's home system to the galactic network. If it fell, Earth would be cut off from the galaxy just as the enemy moved in for the final assault on the core worlds. Captain Rodriguez moved to stand beside the Admiral, his weathered face grim. "We've got maybe 6 hours before they reach the relay station. The garrison there has already begun evacuation." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. The past 2 weeks of hit-and-run attacks had taken their toll on the human fleet. The UES Ranger remained in dry dock after suffering catastrophic engine damage. The UES Wolverine was running on backup systems, her hull patched with temporary repairs that wouldn't survive another major engagement. But they were still fighting. "Signal the fleet," Admiral Chen ordered. "All ships to converge on my position. We're going to make a stand." The response came immediately from captains who had learned to trust their admiral's judgment through fire and blood. One by one, the human warships emerged from the darkness between stars, their fusion drives burning bright as they converged on the admiral's coordinates. The UES Reaper arrived first, her hull scarred from dozens of engagements but her weapons still deadly. Captain Sarah Martinez had pushed her ship beyond all safety limits to reach the rendezvous point, her crew working around the clock to keep their battered vessel combat ready. Reaper reporting for duty. "Admiral," came Martinez's transmission. "We're running on fumes and prayers, but we're ready to fight." The UES Stalker followed, then the UES Hammer, each ship telling the same story. Battle damage hastily repaired. Ammunition running low, crews pushed to their absolute limits, but none of them wavered. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to back down now. "Admiral," Commander Jackson reported from the tactical station, "the Galactic Defense Fleet is requesting permission to join the engagement." Chen's eyebrows rose in surprise. "How many ships?" 43 vessels, Admiral. They've stripped every defense installation from here to the core worlds. General Theiss himself is leading the formation. The main display showed the approaching Galactic Fleet, sleek vessels built for speed and elegance rather than warfare. Chen knew they were brave souls volunteering for what amounted to suicide, but she couldn't turn away any help. "Signal General Theiss that he's welcome to join us. But his ships are to maintain maximum distance from the enemy. Their weapons won't be effective at close range and their hulls can't take the punishment ours can." What followed was perhaps the strangest fleet formation in galactic history. 12 battle-scarred human warships took point, their angular hulls bristling with kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. Behind them, 43 alien vessels spread in a support formation, their energy weapons charged and ready to provide covering fire. The enemy fleet continued its relentless advance, apparently unconcerned by the puny force arrayed against them. Why should they worry? They had destroyed everything else that had stood in their path. These few ships, damaged and outnumbered 15-1, could hardly pose a significant threat. They were about to learn just how wrong they could be. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast on an open channel that would be heard throughout the galaxy. "Today we make our stand not just for humanity, but for every species that calls this galaxy home. The enemy believes they can sweep us aside like dust. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate Deathworlders." The human fleet accelerated toward the enemy formation, their fusion drives pushed to maximum output. Behind them, the galactic ships struggled to keep pace, their crews watching in amazement as the humans charged directly into the teeth of overwhelming enemy firepower. The aliens opened fire first, their massive weapons lancing out with beams of sickly green energy. The space between the fleets became a storm of deadly radiation as nearly 200 enemy weapons discharged simultaneously, and the human ships flew straight through it. The UES Defiance took a direct hit that would have vaporized any galactic vessel, her port armor glowing white-hot as ablative plating burned away in layers. But she kept firing, her railguns sending stream after stream of relativistic projectiles into the enemy formation. "Hull breach on Deck 7, came the damage report. "Sealing emergency bulkheads. All stations report combat effective." The UES Hammer wasn't as lucky. A concentrated barrage from 3 enemy ships punched through her forward armor, sending atmosphere streaming from massive hull breaches. But Captain Torres kept his ship in the fight, using emergency power to maintain weapons fire even as his crew worked frantically to seal the wounds. "This is Hammer," Torres reported, his voice strained but determined. "We're hurt bad, but we're still in this fight." Targeting their command ship. The battle became a chaotic melee as the human ships tore into the enemy formation. Unlike their previous hit-and-run tactics, this was a direct assault. 12 ships against 157, trading blow for blow in a contest of pure destruction. The Galactic Support Fleet hung back, their energy weapons adding to the chaos but unable to effectively penetrate enemy armor. They watched in awe as human ships absorbed punishment that should have destroyed them instantly, their crews somehow keeping their weapons operational under conditions that would have left most species catatonic with terror. The turning point came when the UES Stalker, badly damaged and running on emergency power, managed to close to point-blank range with the enemy command ship. Captain Lisa Wong, her bridge wreathed in smoke and sparks, made a decision that would echo through history. All ships, this is Stalker. We're making a ramming run on their flagship. Full nuclear detonation on impact. Stalker negative. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Break off and withdraw. Sorry, Admiral, but we're too damaged to withdraw. Besides, these bastards need to learn that you don't threaten Earth and expect to walk away. The UES Stalker's fusion drives flared to maximum output as she accelerated directly toward the massive alien command ship. Enemy weapons concentrated on the approaching human vessel, their beams tearing through her hull like paper. But Captain Wong had rigged her ship's nuclear arsenal to detonate on impact, turning her vessel into a guided antimatter bomb. The explosion when Stalker struck the alien flagship lit up space like a newborn star. The enemy command ship, 20 kilometers of advanced extragalactic technology, simply ceased to exist in the nuclear fire. The blast wave that followed swept through the alien formation, damaging dozens of nearby vessels and throwing their coordinated assault into chaos. In that moment of enemy confusion, the remaining human ships pressed their advantage. The UES Defiance led the charge, her weapons hammering the now leaderless alien fleet with everything she had. The UES Reaper and UES Hammer flanked the enemy formation, their crossfire creating a zone of destruction that claimed ship after ship. The Galactic Support Fleet, inspired by human courage, closed to effective range and added their firepower to the assault. Energy beams that couldn't penetrate alien armor proved effective at damaging sensor arrays and weapon systems, blinding and crippling enemy vessels for the human ships to finish off. When the battle finally ended 3 hours later, the space around the Sol relay was littered with the debris of alien warships. 73 enemy vessels had been destroyed outright, with dozens more too damaged to continue fighting. The remainder, barely 40 ships out of the original 157, fled back toward the galactic rim. The human fleet had paid dearly for their victory. The UES Stalker was gone, her crew's sacrifice having turned the tide of battle. The UES Hammer was a floating wreck, her crew evacuated to other ships. Every surviving human vessel showed battle damage that would take months to repair, but they had won. Admiral Chen stood on her damaged bridge, looking out at the debris field that marked the galaxy's salvation. Her small fleet had done the impossible. They had broken the back of an invasion that had seemed unstoppable. Admiral, Lieutenant Commander Kim reported, her voice filled with wonder. We're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Every species, every world, every station is celebrating. They're calling it the miracle of Proxima. Chen allowed herself a tired smile. Signal Galactic Command that the immediate threat has been neutralized. The enemy fleet is in full retreat. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima, the Galactic Council chambers bore little resemblance to the elegant diplomatic forum that had once mocked humanity's crude warships. The crystalline walls now displayed tactical holographs showing fleet movements across dozens of sectors. The refined atmosphere of political discourse had been replaced by the urgent efficiency of a war council. Admiral Chen stood before the assembled delegates, her uniform bearing new insignia that marked her as Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense Forces. The irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The species that had been dismissed as primitive newcomers now led the galaxy's military efforts. The enemy retreat has not been as complete as we initially hoped, Admiral Chen reported, her voice carrying the weight of recent intelligence. Our long-range scouts have detected 3 separate alien fleets operating in the Outer Rim territories. They appear to be regrouping and adapting their tactics. The main display showed a strategic map of the galaxy, with red markers indicating confirmed enemy positions. Unlike their previous massive formation, the aliens had split into smaller, more maneuverable groups that struck quickly and disappeared back into dark space. Ambassador Zethkar, his 6 eyes focused intently on the display, leaned forward in his floating chair. How many ships are we tracking, Admiral? Approximately 80 vessels total, divided into 3 hunting groups of roughly 25 to 30 ships each. They've abandoned their systematic advance and are now targeting isolated systems with strategic value, fuel depots, manufacturing centers, research stations. Director Malthus materialized as a hologram beside the display, his blue-gray features showing the strain of months spent coordinating intelligence operations. The aliens have learned from their defeats. They're no longer presenting us with concentrated targets for our kinetic weapons. Instead, they strike fast and retreat before our response forces can arrive. General Thys, his ethereal form shimmering with frustration, added his own observations. Our newly constructed warships are still months away from completion. The shipyards are working around the clock to produce vessels based on human designs, but we simply cannot match the speed of production that an emergency requires. The past 6 months had seen a frantic effort to convert galactic civilization from peaceful exploration to military production. Shipyards that had built elegant cruise vessels now struggled to produce angular warships bristling with kinetic weapons. Scientists who had spent their careers perfecting energy efficiency were learning the brutal calculus of armor thickness and ammunition capacity. Captain Rodriguez, recently promoted to admiral and placed in command of the Second Human Fleet, stood to address the council. Our intelligence suggests the aliens are searching for something specific. Their attacks aren't random. They're targeting facilities that might contain certain types of technology or information. What kind of technology? Asked the Centauri representative, her forearms gesturing with nervous energy. Admiral Rodriguez activated his personal display, showing analysis of the attack patterns. Every facility they've hit has contained either advanced manufacturing equipment, exotic matter research, or quantum communication arrays. Our xenoarchaeologists believe they might be trying to repair or upgrade their remaining ships. The implications sent a chill through the assembled delegates. The aliens had already proven adaptable, modifying their tactics after each engagement with human forces. If they managed to repair their losses or upgrade their technology, the galaxy might face an even more dangerous threat. Admiral Chen studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. How long before they complete whatever they're trying to accomplish? Unknown, Director Malthus admitted. However, our analysis of their movement patterns suggests they're working to a specific timeline. Based on their current rate of operations, we estimate they'll conclude their activities within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Then we need to stop them before they finish, Admiral Chen declared. The human fleet will begin immediate hunter-killer operations against all 3 enemy groups. We'll use the same tactics that worked at Proxima. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and make them pay for every system they enter. The Axiom Collective's representative chimed a harmonious note of concern. Admiral, your forces have been reduced to 9 operational ships. Can such a small force effectively engage 3 separate enemy fleets? Admiral Chen's weathered face showed no doubt. The beauty of human naval doctrine is that we don't need overwhelming numbers to be effective. We just need to be in the right place at the right time with enough firepower to make it count. She activated the tactical display, showing the proposed deployment of human forces. The UES Defiance will lead a 3-ship task force against the enemy group operating in the Vega sector. Admiral Rodriguez will take 3 ships to hunt the aliens in the Centauri region. The remaining 3 ships will patrol the galactic core, ready to respond to any breakthrough attempts. Captain Sarah Martinez, recently given command of the rebuilt UES Reaper, voiced the concern that everyone was thinking. Admiral, we're talking about engaging enemy forces that still outnumber us 8 or 9 to 1. Even with our tactical advantages, those aren't good odds. Captain Martinez, Admiral Chen replied, her voice carrying the conviction of someone who had stared down impossible odds before. Humanity has never fought for good odds. We fight because someone has to, and we happen to be very good at it. The briefing continued for another hour, covering logistics, communication protocols, and contingency plans. When it finally concluded, the delegates filed out with the grim knowledge that the galaxy's fate once again rested on the shoulders of humanity's warriors. As the chamber emptied, Admiral Chen remained behind, studying the tactical displays in solitude. The past months had aged her considerably. The responsibility of commanding not just human forces but the galaxy's entire defense had taken its toll. Yet her resolve remained unshakable. Admiral Rodriguez approached, his expression mirroring his superior's concerns. Sarah, are you sure about splitting our forces like this? We've never operated as separate fleets before. Admiral Chen turned to face her old friend and fellow warrior. Marcus, in 6 months we've gone from being galactic laughingstocks to the only thing standing between civilization and extinction. Our crews have proven they can handle anything the universe throws at them. She gestured toward the star chart showing human ship positions. Besides, this is what we've trained for our entire careers. Independent operations behind enemy lines, outnumbered and outgunned, relying on our wits and our weapons to see us through. And if we're wrong? If the aliens have developed countermeasures for our kinetic weapons? Admiral Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we'll adapt, just like we always have. Marcus, humanity didn't become the galaxy's protectors by playing it safe. We became protectors by being too stubborn to know when we're beaten. 3 hours later, the human fleet departed Nexus Prime for what would become known as the Great Hunt. 9 ships carrying the hopes of an entire galaxy spread across the darkness, each crew knowing they might not return but determined to make their sacrifice count. In the depths of space, alien sensors detected the approaching human vessels. The extragalactic invaders had learned to fear those angular ships and their deadly weapons. But they had also learned from their defeats, and they were no longer the same enemy that had been broken at Proxima. The second phase of the war was about to begin, and this time, both sides knew exactly what they were fighting for. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance as her ship entered hyperspace, carrying her toward another confrontation with an enemy that had traveled between galaxies to threaten her adopted home. Behind her, the galaxy held its breath and prayed that humanity's warriors would once again prove that courage and determination could triumph over overwhelming odds. The hunt was on, and the Death Worlders were coming.